Welcome one, welcome all to another episode of Echo from the Buttes. I am your host, Tom Harden, standing in for David Howman. With me, as always, are Andrew Hazlett and Austin Bundy. We're at Colorado Week, 2 games left in the regular season. Big 12 championship game, hope's still alive, but there is an elephant in the room that we need to address before we get into this week's preview. On3 reported earlier this week that Sam Leavitt is doubtful to return to ASU for the 2026 season. Looking at NIL offers rumored to be in the neighborhood of $8 million, and it's definitely cast a pall over the end of the season for the Sun Devils. Things are trending in the right direction with Jeff Sims standing in for Leavitt. And guys, is this really something that is going to overshadow the team the rest of the way, no matter how the team finishes?
I don't think so.
I'm with Andrew there. I don't think it's going to really overshadow anything. There might be, it might be talked about a lot on the networks and whatever broadcasts are going to be carrying the ASU games going forward, but I don't think anybody in the locker room is going to be bothered by this too much, because they're probably going to be the ones that know really what's going on, and they're not going to be too bothered by it. This is just one of those things. I mean, especially with Sam's brother having to come out and say something about, like, this is not, like, official, or this isn't really, like, what's happening yet. So who knows if On3 ran with something that they decided was, well, it's going to happen, even if he hasn't, like, said it's going to happen, which is slightly irresponsible in my opinion. But whatever the decision ends up being, I don't think the football team is out there worried about what Sam's going to do next year. Kenny usually has his guys focused on this week, this game, and that's what I think all of us as fans should really be expecting them to do.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I don't. With the On3 report, it might become true, but I think at this point it is not true. We'll see if it does become true. That's the question we're all asking here. Just people see what's going to happen. I don't know the answer to that. I think we all wish we all knew the answer to that, because that having your quarterback stay, no matter what level of college you're in, if it's group of 4, power 4 down to D3, you want your returning quarterback to stay if you think he's a great quarterback, and I think the ASU staff thinks that.
Absolutely. You want to have that continuity, but this day and age in college football, with NIL on the table for every player, unfortunately you're not going to get that same level of players staying for 3 or 4 seasons before going to the NFL. It's turning into almost like free agency in professional sports. Whoever can pony up the most donor dollars to bring what they feel is the best talent in, that's really the name of the game right now. There's certainly a lot more that needs to be fleshed out to make this a very equitable situation for both the institutions and the players. I do have a little bit of added insight that lends some credibility to the On3 report. The Athletic has corroborated this report, and for me personally, whenever I see anything that does come up on the Athletic, I'm taking that to be largely in truth. Now, again, there's no confirmation from any side that Sam is going to be leaving, but here's a little background for Sam and how he actually got to ASU. This is all courtesy of Ralph Amsden Spaces. I do want to give Ralph a huge shout out for his long form breakdown that I will attempt to paraphrase. But when Sam was in high school, he attended 4 different high schools, playing 1 season at each school. So there already was that ingrained lack of continuity playing for any one team. Then when he's getting recruited out of Westland, Oregon, completely passed over by Oregon State, which leads him to Michigan State. When Michigan State hired Oregon State's head coach, that threw up some red flags for Sam, thinking, I don't want to play for the coach that passed me over. I want to go to somewhere where I'm going to be appreciated. So he comes to Arizona State, and being a very, again, this is in Ralph's words, a very alpha personality. The question was, how is he going to fit in with the team? We all know how that worked out last year, going to the Big 12 championship and the Peach Bowl, and starting out this year. Where I see that, where my gut tells me that he would not be leaving is simply coming off of an injury. There's no upside to either Sam or whatever school does bring him in for whatever the final offer amount is. If it's in that neighborhood of $8 million, that is a lot of money to dole out to a player who's coming off of Lisfranc surgery, and the timetable for return, you're not even sure if he's going to be ready for spring ball at that point. Again, that's just my gut instinct, but Sam is going to, only Sam knows what Sam is going to do, and what we saw from his brother Dallin, who is his agent representative, was not an outright denial of any of the reporting by On3. We don't know what the text message thread that he posted on his Instagram story said further up. We don't know what everything has been going on behind the scenes. All we know is that he's denying what is being said in the moment, in that Sam has not made his mind up about anything. Until I'm of the mentality that until further notice, Sam is still going to be returning for 2026. I have come to be a little bit more at peace with the fact that maybe he will be moving on, and if so, all the best to him. He's going to do what is in his best interest at the end of the day. And, I don't fault any player for leaving a program as long as there's really no bad blood as he's leaving.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. And I didn't get a chance to actually read the full NACOS report from On3, but I don't remember exactly. You can remind me who he was sourcing specifically in that. Was he just sourcing somebody inside of Sam's camp, or did he go even vaguer than that?
I don't know any names that were reported, but there are internal sources to Arizona State that have been cited in that report as well. So it's both in his camp as well as some internal sourcing. There's some belief that Arizona State is 100% in the market to bring in a quarterback out of the portal for 2026. At this point, I just want to see the rest of the season play out. Worry about 2026 when the calendar rolls to 2026. That's not a 2025 problem right now. What is a 2025 problem is Saturday's game at Colorado, which we had a take care of business game against West Virginia. Business eventually did get taken care of, though not as rapidly as we would have hoped for. This week is very much in that same vein. Colorado and West Virginia present two very similar teams, but where I see the difference, West Virginia was trending up, having found success with their freshman quarterback and running back. Colorado is trending downward. You have the starting quarterback in Caden Salter, who seems to have forgotten how to play football. That's about as bluntly as I can put it. He has been replaced by Julian Lewis, a 5-star recruit out of Carrollton, Georgia, and he has played well in his first start, which did come against West Virginia. But going up against Arizona State, even with the health of the overall health of the team, it's not the same test. This is a game that the Sun Devils need to just buckle down, continue to put points on the board, and not let up on the gas like we saw last weekend.
Yeah, I agree. It was interesting how the scoring, if you look at last game, it was all kind of clustered into one quarter for the Sun Devils. Yes, they had a few other drives that they didn't score many points on that they probably should have. I believe one field goal was blocked and one fourth down they went for it and were unsuccessful. But that's something that has been plaguing them since the beginning, is having long drives but failing to score. Which, if they want to win at Colorado and especially the Territorial Cup in a week, they're going to have to do that.
Absolutely. I mean, like you guys said, this is another take care of business game. This is another, I would dare say, a must-win game just because of the Big 12 championship game implication. If you are going to go, going on the road is tough enough, but if you're going on the road and you know the opponent across from you on paper is inferior and your scheme is going to match up well against theirs, that's not something that you go into overconfident about, but you go into realizing, like, when we step onto the field, we are the bosses. We are the ones that call all the shots out there. And if you execute, things are going to go your way. And I think that's really all it's going to come down to on Saturday is execution. Can ASU stay out of its own way? Can they avoid any of the stupid offensive penalties? The one thing that ASU fans know very well is that ASU does not play very well on the road in Boulder. So that is one thing they're going to have to overcome is the road factor here. And I haven't checked the weather for the weekend yet, but hopefully it's not going to be too cold. There's not going to be any precipitation or anything. But playing on the road in Boulder is tough enough as it is. ASU doesn't have a great history there, but if Kenny has got these guys prepared to just take care of business and execute on their game plan, this will hopefully play out like West Virginia, but hopefully with a much larger lead for ASU by the time 4 quarters is up.
Well, you bring up the weather for Boulder on Saturday. I'm looking at the forecast right now, calling for a high of 56. Looks like it should be about mid to high 40s at kickoff at 6 p.m. Only a 5% chance of precipitation, so it's going to be a cold one, but overall the weather should not be too much of a factor. You do mention not playing well on the road at Colorado. To me, the worry about this game is that it can turn into that unmentionable Oregon town. I hate to invoke the vibes, but it's in that timeline of the season where we've seen in years past, a season back-breaking loss that ends an otherwise promising year, and that's a thought that's creeping around the back of my mind. I'm sincerely hoping that we don't get that, but
that was a week 13 too, wasn't it?
Typically week 12, week 13, it was always right towards the end of the season, either a week or two before the Territorial Cup. But very much a take care of business game. And just got to go out there, execute, put points up, consistently keep the offense going, and force Julian Lewis into mistakes. He is a freshman. He's he's bound to make mistakes. It's not out of the question. It's just gotta stick to the game plan and make it happen. As far as the overall health of the team, Rodney Bimage headlines the injury report after last week's game. Everybody saw the hit where he was down on the field, motionless. He did eventually get up under his own power, but he has been listed out. So that's a major blow to the defense. But we do have a questionable report for Jordan Tyson. The first time he has not been listed as out for a game since Texas Tech, and going up against his former school at Colorado. I'm hoping that he makes a return, wants to show up his former team and really make a return to the field.
Yeah, Jordan Tyson practiced this week. He not sure exactly what I can't say, but he wasn't running full speed on some plays, which is obviously coming back for an injury. This is the first week. He's been practicing, so that's a good sign, but just because a player's practicing doesn't mean he's going to return. I know this was the week that he was wanting to return. That's what Dillingham's been saying, is he might be back for Colorado. Now it's Colorado time. We'll see if he plays. I think it's possible. This is the best chance I would have given him compared to any other week so far. So I'm also not a doctor, so I don't know if he's ready for this week or not. So
is there any concern that he potentially, I don't think he would do this, but is there any concern that they reach a point where with his injury, if they think it's better for him to just heal up for the NFL Combine at this point?
I don't think that's a thought right now, but I wouldn't rule anything out. Like I said, I'm not a doctor. I think he's close to returning anyway from what I've seen. Take it with a grain of salt. You can see everything on Twitter. I'm just an armchair doctor here. he looks like he's close. They're saying he's close to me. What I'm hearing Dillingham say, and what Arroyo said as well on Wednesday. I think if he's not going to return this week, I think he's going to return next week. At 95% confident in saying that, but I could be wrong.
And me thinking if I were in his shoes, bear in mind I'm still of the mind where you're there's no transfer portal. You're with your team for the duration of your college career. I'm thinking if I was in that situation, I'm definitely wanting to return against my former school, and if I can't do that, then I want to return for my rivalry game. In all likelihood, he is going to be declaring for the draft. I don't think there's really much doubt of that. So me personally, I would think that he wants one more crack at Tucson before leaving ASU. That's my gut. That's what I would be doing in his shoes. I'm not Jordan Tyson. I've never come close to being on a football field to have this kind of decision to make. So I call it maroon tinted glasses, call it what you will. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Keep in mind, Jordan Tyson missed the final portion of the game last year due to an injury that kept him out of the postseason. So take that for what you will. I'm not saying it's that he will return. I'm not saying that he won't return. It's possible either way.
The fact that he is practicing at reported about 85%, that does seem promising. We will wait to see what the final injury reports show, but as of right now, he does remain questionable, and comparing that to NFL reports, you're kind of holding your breath, waiting to see. So that's what we will continue to do here. A bit of exciting news dropped today with the uniform combination that the Sun Devils will be wearing at Folsom Field. For the first time ever, the running Sparky logo will be worn on a white shell, and it's safe to say that this broke the internet in a very good way. The reception so far to Cole Streeper, shout out ASU Uniformity, when he posted that this evening was overwhelmingly positive. It's something that I'm sure there's been a lot of chatter from fans hypothesizing, oh, can we see him on a white shell or different color shells than just the classic gold? But when I saw it, it's one of those things that I never knew I wanted it this much. The look is incredibly clean. For those who haven't seen it yet, it is the white shell, white jersey, maroon pants, white shoes. This just screams business. And I am excited to see the product on the field, at least as much as I can while I'm watching on my phone at hockey. We'll get more into hockey in a little bit, but this combination is fire, as the kids say.
Yeah. I think I love the Sparky on the white dome. That's a home run. I will say my only critique of the entire uniform is having the white helmet with a white jersey. I don't know if that's just me, but I feel like when you have a white helmet, you need it to contrast with something, and to have it just be a white helmet, white uniform, it took just a little bit of the hype away from me. It's still they're still going to look great out there on the field. But I feel like sometime next year, if they want to bring that white helmet back, it's going to look really good on with the maroon jersey or with even the black jersey. I think would really contrast with that well. That gave me the idea of potentially if you wanted to take Sparky rather than the full-on Sparky that we know with the colorized and everything, if you just took a transparent Sparky where it's only gold outlines but you put it on a black dome, that's something I feel like they should experiment with next.
That is something that I immediately thought of for a potential blackout for next year. Do the same stencil design that they did with the pitchfork, put it on the matte black with the black tops, black pants. That would be a dynamic combination, something for the powers that be to consider for next year. Hopefully they're listening and take our suggestions to heart.
I have no suggestions except return to the copper uniforms. I like those. That's my 2 cents.
Can we get the anthracite uniforms as well? from the Nike era. If Adidas can buy out the Nike design and bring those back.
It's a shame that we lost Desert Ice and Desert Hammer to that dreaded loss curse, that dreaded year. What was it? That was Berkovic's final year, senior year.
It was 2014, I think, was the first time the Desert Hammer came out.
15. Because we went to Adidas in 15, and that's when we got Desert Ice against Texas A&M, and then Desert Hammer was against Oregon, I believe, with the Copper Dome.
That's right. All I can say is, these looks have been very dynamite for the most part. And Austin, to your point about the offsetting shell, I think if it was, I don't think this white Sparky helmet would work if it was a full whiteout jersey. That's where the stenciling logo would work better if you want to bring in Sparky to that. But I think with the maroon pants, I think the white shell works on top of the white jersey. It would just look a little bit too bland if it was all white with the white pants. It would just kind of look like it would look like almost a Walmart combo jersey if I can be so crass.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I see it. It's a great combo. I don't have anything against what they're doing with it right now. I just think my personal preference would have liked to see Sparky and a white dome clash more or contrast more with whatever was on the body, but it still works.
This opens up possibilities for next year, so we'll see what they bring for sure. Moving on a little bit from football, we do have hockey in action this weekend, and Andrew, I don't know about you, but this is my favorite series of the schedule. The Denver Pioneers coming into town. This is the 18th time that the Sun Devils and the Pioneers have met in program history. It's a series that always seems to bring out the best in Arizona State. Something about the Pioneers, whether it's coming down here to Tempe or going up to Denver, it unlocks a whole new gear in this team. And I can't quite put my finger on what that gear is or why it's only against Denver, but if we can only play this way against one team, I want it to be Denver.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Alaska is off the calendar yearly now, being an NCHC team. That was a rivalry that I got to see the end of and liked. But I guess Denver is Arizona State's main hockey rival now, I would say. And I'm looking forward to this series. Like you said last year, ASU got 3 of the 4 victories on that schedule, with the other one being an overtime loss. These two teams know how to push each other, and I know Denver's got a younger core as well. Brought in a bunch of freshmen, with the losses of Jack Devine, who's making his Florida Panthers debut tonight. Tonight when we're recording this, that would be yesterday for all of the people listening, Friday. And Zeev Buium now in the NHL as well. A couple of those key pieces from Denver on to new places. And similar things for ASU that we've covered fairly well. I'm excited to see the battle of these, younger teams in the NCHC on what we could see these cores grow and develop for the next 2, 3, 4 years.
To me, Denver has been they've been the standard to which Arizona State is striving to attain since joining the NCHC. Obviously, they are the national leader in national championships with 10, 2 in the last 4 seasons under head coach David Carl. And what you see out of the Pioneers year over year is a very static roster. You do not see Denver going to the transfer portal as much as other teams. What you do see is very high quality recruiting and high quality retention. You see a lot of guys stay for their extended careers. Where you might have seen a guy leave for the NHL after a season, if he is a high caliber player, you're seeing teams trust the David Carl process and allow them to continue to develop these guys and build them into better hockey players. You bring up Jack Devine, who was a dynamic scorer for the Pioneers last year, put up 57 points, which in a 40-game schedule, especially at the college age, that's that's an NHL-ready kid right there. Even as a senior, and just getting that extra time in David Carl's system only prepared him all the better. My biggest question mark when it came to Denver was how are they going to replace Matt Davis at goaltender after he moved on to the NHL, and I think that answer has been very well answered with the play of Quentin Miller. You're talking about a young core. Quentin Miller's a freshman. In 10 games, all he's done is put up an 8-2 record with a sub-2 goals against average and better than a 94% save percentage. It's uncanny how David Carl just finds these guys, gets their commitment, and develops them into the high-quality team that we've known to expect from coming out of Denver.
Yeah, I'm glad that ASU's got this type of high-quality opposition, especially this time of year when you want to see him go on a heater. Having paid attention to ASU hockey since before they joined the NCHC, but even just knowing that they've got this budding rivalry with Denver, especially because it kind of bloomed in between social media admins early on. I like this rivalry. I'm glad that we have it, and it's something that I think is only going to be one of those like iron sharpens iron type of situations, and it's only going to make the ASU program better in the long run, especially when you're going to have these types of matchups be critical for the recruiting trail for somebody like Powers to go out and point to potential upsets like we saw last year to say this, like, we've got what it takes to play with the best of the best. We're in one of the best conferences, and to be able to be like, you want to be a part of this, you want to be a part of this story and a part of this rivalry, choose Arizona State.
Yeah, Arizona State also, kind of comparing this team to last year's team, has the same record as this year to last year. And this team needs to go on a run at some point if they want to make the NCAA tournament. The easiest way to do it is win the conference championship, but you have to show that you can contend with other teams to win the conference championship. And to be brutally honest, I haven't seen that yet. Yes, you did collect a shootout win over Colorado College, which you were down 3-0 in, which is, yes, something, and I'll give it that. But I don't think the North Dakota win is as big as it is, because North Dakota started, in my opinion, what is their second best goalie at the moment. Obviously, that could change, and we saw that level of play in Gibson Homer for North Dakota, allowing 4 goals on 15 shots, or 3 goals, I think it was, on 15 shots, which is just not good, to put it bluntly. And I think that's not the North Dakota that you'll see come in these late games at the end of the year. ASU has to make a statement against Denver this weekend, in my opinion, if they want to be taken. Not that they're not going to be taken seriously by every other team. That's what you do when you're playing sports. You take every other team seriously. But if you're looking at NCHC contenders at the end of the year, you have to win these games early. And this is the perfect opportunity for Arizona State to collect 4 points and say, hey, don't forget about us, which is what they have.
Yeah, exactly. Like with this type of conference, you have 3 different tiers. You've got your contenders, your pretenders, and then the basement. ASU's not a basement team, but they certainly don't want to be stuck in that pretender category. Winning a couple of these games, like you said, beating North Dakota 1 out of 2, getting the shootout win over Colorado College, but ultimately splitting a lot of these series when you really should be taking all 4 points in these to be considered a contender.
Well, there's actually 6 points on the table in conference play. It's 3 points for a win, 2 points for an overtime win. But regardless, the rule of thumb for these series is sweep at home, split on the road. Arizona State accomplished that going up to Grand Forks last weekend. Got the split on the road. Now it's time to take care of business against Denver. Got to get at least 5 points. You got to take 1 win in regulation, 1 win in overtime at the minimum. That's what I'm looking for out of this team to really break out of the early season funk. And Andrew, to your point of having not really seen anything out of this team so far, to be completely fair, we didn't see much out of the same team last year before going up to Denver. There was nothing that instilled any confidence that we could have expected the performance that we saw last year. When I was on the plane flying up to Denver for that series, I was frantically hoping that Arizona State could find a way to steal even just 2 points. You had an overtime win. Even if you lose the other game, at least have 2 points in the back pocket that you can say, we went up to Denver, we got some points. It wasn't a series win, but it wasn't a series loss either. We know exactly what happened. Swept the full 6 points, 3-2 win on Friday night, 5-2 win on the Saturday, very convincing fashion. And this team is, this should be the wake-up series for this team to jump into high gear and start the run for the rest of the year. Because right after Denver is an Ohio State team that is middling around 500, but does have the benefit of playing in the Big Ten, and that strength of schedule. They are also going to be a top 20 team when they come into Tempe. So the schedule doesn't get any easier. And even looking beyond that, you have a Dartmouth team that is to date undefeated. This is a gauntlet for the Sun Devils. It's a stretch of the schedule going into the holiday break that need to take home as many wins as possible and set themselves up for when the season returns in January for the Desert Hockey Classic.
Yeah, I'm looking at the ratings. I guess that's not going to want to load, I guess. I was trying to pull up the RPI for college hockey right now, but that did not want to load on my computer, unfortunately for me. But I know ASU's somewhere around the 40 mark in the RPI right now, which is, if you want to make the tournament, you got to be around 15 or higher, because I'm not going to assume the Atlantic Hockey America Conference's champion's going to be in the top 15 with the way they play. So you got to be top 15 or higher, top 14 or higher, maybe, depending on how things shake out. And it's a long way up for ASU right now. I know Denver's in the top 10, I believe, if not just out of it. And then Ohio State, I don't think they'll be as high, but like you said, David or Tom, a good strength of schedule by playing in the Big Ten. They're going to have a very high RPI, certainly in the top 20.
And sandwiched into the schedule throughout the holidays, you also have a 2-game series up in Duluth against the Minnesota Duluth Bulldogs, also a top 10 team in the NPI. So you have four straight series against teams that are either in the tournament picture or on the bubble. It's business time for the Sun Devils, and it's time to start the engine, get at least out of the next 8 games. I got to take home at minimum 5 wins and get set up for the second half of the season on the other side of the holiday break. But don't go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, with those games, you've got a trip up to Dartmouth, who's doing really well this year, and then you've got your tournament at home, the Desert Hockey Classic, which Arizona State has won the last 2 years. Arizona State always performs well in the tournaments. I think they can continue that, but you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself. So you still got Denver this week.
Yep. Don't miss any of our coverage of hockey. Andrew and I will both have coverage for Devils in Detail throughout the weekend. Games Friday at 7 p.m. and Saturday at 5 p.m. Don't miss any of our news and notes throughout the weekend. Going on to other sports, we women's volleyball. Very dominant performance in Orlando against Central Florida yesterday. I dropped in our team chat that the girls wanted to end the game quickly so that they could see Disney World at night before the park closed for the night, and it was. I'm very novice to the game of volleyball, but that was about as dominant of a performance as I think you can put out as a team.
Yeah, definitely. UCF's not one of the better teams in the Big 12. They're down there, And with Kansas losing, I believe they've lost to Utah, Arizona State has clinched at least a share of the Big 12 title in volleyball, so that it would be back-to-back champions for Coach JJ Van Neal and everyone there with on that team and the staff. Just like I've said, and he's done such an amazing job with that program, turning it around from a middling team in the Pac-12 to what it is now is a lot. I believe Arizona State's top 5 in the RPI there, in contention of hosting, being a 1 seed even, depending on how things shake out. Maybe a 2 seed. That's where I think they might be at the end of the year. They're doing great things, and I would imagine that would continue through the rest of the year and into the postseason.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say it's their year. Just at how dominant they've been, and just like the momentum is with them. I think like you said, there's no Big 12 tournament, so they're going to win the conference here. I think they're going to enter into the tournament in that tier of serious contender, but overlooked by a lot of the pundits, focusing in on those 1 seeds, focusing on those blue blood programs. Because ASU is going to be a great story. They're going to be one of those programs that are like, oh, look out for ASU. Like, you can't take them, like, you can't underestimate them or anything. But I don't think anybody's going to take them seriously enough to reach a national championship game. And I think that's where ASU is going to have that type of chip on their shoulder, realizing that, yes, we've dominated all year, but now when you make it to the national stage, when you make it to where a national championship is on the line, nobody's going to take us seriously. Nobody's going to take this program as the actual contender that we know and we believe we are. So I think that if there's anything the coach is going to do to motivate them to get through that bracket as dominant as they did in the regular season, it's the fact that they need to go in there thinking they are the underdog every time, that everything they do is just not going to be good enough for whoever's covering them or whoever's going to be talking about the bracket at this point.
I'm not as optimistic as you, Austin, which is weird to say because I know you're the resident pessimist here, I guess. And Tom's the resident optimist. But yeah, I do think they're going to go, I would imagine Sweet 16 or Elite 8 would be my guess, but we obviously don't know what's going to happen in these final few games, how the seeding's going to come out. We don't know that picture. That's just me throwing darts at the wall, a board that I don't know where the board is. So your guess is as good as mine at this point because I don't know how. No one knows how everything's going to shake out.
It's exciting seeing another sport driving up the image of Arizona State. Volleyball does have 3 matches remaining, 1 more on the road coming up Friday night at Houston before returning to Desert Financial Arena for the final 2 of the season, hosting Cincinnati and West Virginia. Those matches on November 26th and the 29th, respectively, before the tournament selection show on the 30th, and first and second rounds beginning on December 4th. So keep your eyes out for volleyball action. And if you haven't been to a volleyball match, I've not been to one yet this season, but I did make it to a couple last year. It is an electric atmosphere, and it's been some of the most packed crowds that you get at Desert Financial. I believe the last 2 matches have set attendance records for ASU volleyball. So it's
this side of 2000. There's historically, if you go past 2000, a long ways back, ASU set the record a long time ago, but that was when newspapers were prevalent. And is that really a record? I don't know.
Oh, since 2000, we'll say that, but I believe the last crowd was 7,800 fans, something around there.
Mm-hmm. Something like that.
We're going to be keeping an eye on the volleyball team going the rest of the way. Last stop in for the night for us. We will take a look in at basketball. Men's basketball is coming off of a win against Georgia State, following the game against Gonzaga, which, depending on how deeply invested you are in basketball, maybe that just didn't happen for you. But what do you guys make out of basketball so far this season? What are you seeing that is positive for the season to date?
They're winning the games that they're supposed to win so far. You look at some of these teams, uh, what their expectations were, that they weren't really just expecting anything. I know Arizona State played Georgia State closer than they probably should have, but at the end of the day, wins are wins, and I don't want to detract from that at all, which is it poses an interesting question. It really, just you can put it across any sport. How much value does a win, like a 2 point win versus a 20 point win have at the end of the day? I don't know if there's a right answer to that question at all, because it's depending on who you ask, you get a different answer, and I know you get different answers across every sport too. So I don't know if you guys want to weigh in on that.
I think it comes down to like a win is a win, but you do need to kind of pay attention to how you win sometimes, because if there's a pattern of playing teams closer than you were supposed to, and I'm talking about the type where you were supposed to pull away from a team late in the second half, but you didn't, and you're playing more of those inferior teams closer than you really should, then I think it comes down to how sustainable is your pattern of play? Are you playing a type of offense or a type of defense that is not going to be sustainable in the long run, in which when you go and play teams that you should beat or teams that are going to be more evenly matched, that type of play is not going to be enough and they're going to start taking advantage of it. So I think that's where you're going to have to look at the next few games for ASU and how Bobby Hurley has these guys playing. If they can't pull away from some of these opponents that they're supposed to be beating by 7 points at least or more, then as soon as we hit Big 12 play, you're going to have to start seeing whether or not, if they keep pulling those out, then it's one of those like this team just has what it takes to win, and you find ways to win. But if you're not able to beat these teams handily like you're supposed to, you're going to enter conference play and you're going to have a stretch of games where you're getting tossed around, because that type of play may work with a mid-major, but it's not going to fly when you're playing a power conference team. And I mean, we can chalk up Gonzaga as a power conference quality opponent despite them being in a mid-major conference. So again, like a win is a win, but if ASU is going to continue to show a pattern of playing games where they're only beating these smaller mid-major schools by 3-4 points and potentially having to get down to that last minute where you're having to play the timeout game a little bit, and go to the free throw line less often than you should be, then you might have a problem.
Yeah, you don't want to be on John Rothstein's The Epitome of Brutality.
The epitome of brutality, yep.
One thing I was impressed with the play of Mo Odom when I was at the opener against Southern Utah. He does have the look of a solid floor general, just seeing the way he directs the offense up the floor. And then I can hardly go a day without mentioning Masama Diop and just how dominant he is down on the low post. And even seeing him shooting from beyond the arc against I believe it was who was it in the second game, was Utah Tech. You don't expect to see a big guy shooting 3-pointers like that, much less making them. So I think those are a couple of solid pieces, but I'm just apprehensive about how those pieces will continue to mesh together, and if Bobby Hurley can get these guys to play consistently and like you guys have been saying, win games against the teams that you need to win against and win them handily. Looking ahead at Arizona State's immediate schedule, as we're recording tonight, the Sun Devils are getting ready to tip off at Hawaii. That game will be at 10 p.m. Arizona time. So, as you're listening tomorrow, hopefully you're reading a positive recap of the game. And then the Maui Invitational starts on November 24th. Arizona State will be playing Texas, and then following that on the 25th, we'll play either Washington State or Chaminade, with a third-round game to be announced on the 26th. Lots of action coming up for Sun Devil basketball. We'd be remiss if we didn't talk about women's basketball and Molly Miller getting her 300th career win. That's a monumental achievement, no matter who it is. I believe Molly Miller is now she's the third all-time winningest coach in women's basketball history behind just Gino Auriemma. Name's slipping me for who second place is.
I believe it's the LSU coach, if memory serves me right.
Yes, I think you're right.
And I think that's current coaches in the winning percentage, if memory serves me
The
right.
current coaches, yeah. Sorry. Austin, you're on mute.
No, I'm sorry. I was going to say Pat Summitt's not on that list. I feel like Molly Miller has not passed Pat Summitt yet.
I'm still a novice to basketball. I make a little faux pas here and there, but the third active winningest coach. There we go. But it's still still a very monumental achievement. It's great to see her get that milestone as an ASU coach, and I think the trajectory for women's basketball is looking very solid in the early days of the Molly Miller.
If they go on a run here, we can all credit it to the armadillo. I saw they brought an armadillo in was it post practice that they brought that in for?
They brought in a
Yes.
few other animals too. I think they brought in a Burmese python, some sort of snake. I'm not a snake expert. I'm not many things. All I just do is write about sports. That's something I can do, but some sort of animal. I know they brought some other creature in there too. Something cool.
Whatever gets the mojo going in the locker room, I'm all for it. I'm not the biggest snake guy. I don't have a fear of them, but I saw that picture. I'm thinking, okay, that's a choice. Hey, if it works, it works. I'm not gonna knock what gets the winning vibes flowing. Well, we've got a very, very exciting period of athletics coming up. Lots of action to keep your eye out for across all sports this weekend. We will have you covered on all fronts on Devils in Detail throughout the weekend. For Austin Bundy, for Andrew Hazlett, I'm Tom Harden, signing off for another episode, and as always, give 'em hell, Devils.